I used to be the kind of guy who stayed late to make sure everything ran smoothly. I wasn't a manager, but I basically ran the evening operations at our distribution center. We shipped everything from electronics to home goods, and if something went wrong, if a truck was delayed, or a manifest was off, I stayed to fix it. I didn't do it for overtime pay or recognition. I just didn't like seeing things fall apart when it could be avoided. Everyone seemed to appreciate it, or at least no one complained. The warehouse ran smoother because of it. Until we got a new regional manager, Cliff. Cliff was one of those corporate guys who spoke entirely in buzzwords: synergy, workflow optimization, labor efficiency. Wore shiny loafers on the warehouse floor and never looked directly at anyone who wasn't wearing a blazer. Within his first week, he was reviewing payroll and hour logs like a hawk. Within 2, I got called into his office. He sat there with this smug, fake smile and pointed to my time card. "Can you explain why you're logging so much overtime?" I told him the truth. I stayed late to cover gaps, keep shipments moving, and help out the crew. If I didn't stay, things would fall behind or get messed up, especially after hours. He nodded, then dropped this gem. "We don't want employees volunteering for overtime. It skews our labor metrics. From now on, stick to your scheduled hours. No more, no less." I asked who was going to cover the late issues then. His response? "If it's not in your shift, it's not your problem." "Okay, if you insist." That evening, when my shift ended at 5 p.m., I clocked out and left. Normally, I'd stay another hour or 2 to tie up loose ends. Not that night. I didn't answer the radio, didn't check on the incoming shipment that was already delayed, didn't fix the broken dock scheduler that drivers were already lining up to complain about. I came in the next morning to find the place in absolute chaos. A late load hadn't been checked in, 2 drivers had left without paperwork, and the inventory from Dock 4 hadn't been reconciled, meaning it was just sitting in limbo. But I kept my mouth shut, clocked in, did exactly what my schedule required, clocked out at 5 o'clock again. Night 2, worse. Drivers were furious. A couple even left without their loads, meaning 2 shipments missed their deadlines. That triggered penalty clauses in our contracts. By Friday, I was called back into Cliff's office, but this time, Linda, the actual warehouse manager, was there too. Cliff looked annoyed. "We've had some significant service disruptions this week. Do you know why?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Yes. No one is covering after-hours coordination. I used to handle it voluntarily. But you told me to stop." You could see it dawn on him, slowly, that this mess was his fault. He glanced at Linda, probably expecting her to back him up. But Linda wasn't having it. "He's right," she said. "And honestly, we're lucky things didn't get worse." Cliff muttered something about needing to restructure our shift coverage, but it was obvious he was scrambling. The following week, he tried to put the blame on me to upper management, claimed I hadn't trained others properly or created adequate documentation. But Linda wasn't letting that happen. She'd been running this warehouse for years and knew exactly what was going on. She went to bat for me in front of corporate and even brought receipts. She showed them how many late shipments I'd personally salvaged over the last 2 years, how many contract penalties I'd prevented just by staying late and getting things sorted. She even calculated how much money I'd saved the company. It was a 6-figure number. That's when things flipped. Suddenly, I was being asked to help redesign the shift structure. We started budgeting actual overtime for people instead of pretending it didn't exist. I got promoted finally to a role that gave me the authority to make those after-hours decisions officially. And Cliff? He was reassigned. No one really knows where, and honestly, no one cared. Now I don't volunteer for overtime. I get paid for it. The warehouse runs smoother, drivers are happier, and people actually get to go home on time more often because the workload's been properly distributed. But here's the kicker. I never argued. I never yelled. I didn't slam doors or write angry emails. I just did what I was told, and I let the system collapse without me. So if you've got someone who keeps things running quietly in the background, Maybe don't treat them like a problem just because they don't fit neatly into a spreadsheet. Because when that person stops going the extra mile, you'll feel it. Hard.